our podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Rezvan Viennet.
Today, I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Lexi Willetts, part of the duo, Marina, is it Pengley?
Pengley, yeah.
Pengley, okay. The startup they've set up is called The Little Black Door. Lexi, welcome.
Thank you. We like to consider ourselves as the future of fashion interaction.
The future of fashion interaction, exactly that. So I came across you guys when I read a Guardian article, which was quite eye-opening because some of the statistics in there about women's wear designers, and only 40% of them are female, and executives in the boardroom, they're not represented. And I was like, having worked at Microsoft where we have I would say a fair representation between male and female, it was just super fascinating. But that was only part of the story. What really fascinated me is like the vision of the future of retail, and then how I would say in luxury, maybe in other areas as well, but I would say from the little that I know about you, luxury seems to be a natural home, and looking at your beautiful handbag display behind you, it's obviously a very niche but yet broad market, in the sense that it's inch deep, mile wide in terms of how wide reaching it is across the globe. So welcome to the show. I was just wondering, for those who don't know or not read, people who've not read the article, what's A Little Black Door all about?
Little Black Door is fondly called as the social wardrobe app, and it allows you to capture your wardrobe, so very quickly upload what you've bought. We also connect with your e-receipts, and we can connect with retail partners in order to make that go very quick. But actually, it's much more than that. It's this very fun world, our wardrobe world, where you can use functions to kind of engage with what you own, star with what you have, upstar with friends, but you can also share your wardrobe to your friends as well.
Oh, cool.
So a big champion of what we do is try to get you to make use of what you own. So we have a borrow functionality between friends. And then when you are ready to, I guess, clear the closet, we try and link you in a much more efficient way to resale partners that we kind of plug into our platform as well. But it's very much designed we're kind of the Instagram or Pinterest Instagram angle of social product, rather than necessarily the kind of StockX exchange for goods type.
Is it? When I was doing my research, and I thought I'd better ask you this, so I learn from it, and I don't mind sharing it with my audience. Is it wrong to go to people's Pinterest boards and have a look at that? Because I had a look, and then I was like, oh my god, and then I saw all of your boards, right? And so you may go and delete a few of them, but then I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, is this relevant to the interview, or am I actually getting a bit of a so what's your view on that? Is Pinterest fair game for when you're looking at people's?
I guess if you leave it public, it's fair game, right?
Okay.
So it's expression of your style, isn't it? Pinterest. Yeah. It's the memory capture or the expression of style, depending on what you're using it for. But I think there's a lot more brands using that actually to communicate new collections, which is good for us because we kind of look at the behaviors that we're already doing, and we try and capture that and kind of bundle it in the app to make a very lateral thinking product.
Yeah, I mean, there's three elements of your business that I love. I love the social element, obviously, and you're starting that with your friends. I love the luxury element of that as well. Because it does feel like, if you do go into a Burberry or a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton and you have that experience, first thing you really want to do is share it, right? You're not going to buy it and then put it in a black bag and not show anyone. And it just feels like, apart from the mundane Instagram photo of you outside, whatever, having that social element is fantastic. How did you come up with the idea? What was the sort of what was behind your thinking?
Well, I think the idea stemmed from Marina, actually, in about 2018. We were working together on a project. We'd worked together on another business, actually, previous to that. And we were traveling a lot and probably wearing about 2% of our wardrobes all the time. And I was quite a prolific reseller. I'd often buy handbags to then sell them to buy my next bag, fueling the desire. And so, Marina was fairly obsessed with, we should be doing better actually with what we own. I don't even know what I own. And actually, if I go to events or, things are coming up, I very often call girlfriends to say, what have you got?
Is that because, so just to put this for context that people, maybe someone off the bat gets you, but is that because the sheer quantity of what you had? Was it, what was it? How come you didn't know? Is it the way that you were? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we've certainly, I think I'm an unfortunate project or product of a generation that perhaps got into some buying behaviors and kind of consumer or consumerism and just literally consuming. I'm very shortly to turn 40, and I think the last kind of 10 to 15 years have kind of really ratcheted up our purchasing behavior. I think that's probably fueled a little bit by the behemoths of fast fashion who present us with collections that are very affordable all the time. And we, I'm totally unconscious to that purchasing behavior and unconscious certainly to the effect of what that does to the planet. As you get, slightly along the track, you have a realization that perhaps is not the best way to be. And, there's been a big shift and a zeitgeist shift in thinking, I think certainly in the last 12 to 18 months. You've got the likes of Anna Wintour coming to market to say, don't buy fast fashion, invest in quality. And I don't think she's wrong in that viewpoint. There is a place for fast fashion for sure as a price point. I think, do we need to buy every day? Do we need to buy every week? And create that appetite for the volume of fast fashion to be in the wardrobe, and because we end up with a situation where you're either not cognizant of what you own, or your wardrobes are bulging, and then you're just you're tossing it to charity, or you're in the bin, which is even worse. So I think we just were very aware of what our own behaviors were driving, and kind of put a stake in the ground and said there needs to be something better.
No, absolutely.
But also you just start to examine your behaviors around that time, and that kind of led to the product development. So, we'd noticed that we were actually very often cataloging our wardrobes on Instagram without even realizing, selfies, outfits of the day, tagging brands. We were buying a lot more online, so therefore getting e-receipts and data, very good e-receipt data that was just sitting idle and never really used. I watched a bit my own user experience through eBay, which was, I would sell something, but actually the record of sale would then disappear very often, or I would buy something from eBay and that wouldn't be a data packet, if you like, that I could then use to resell it on. So you kind of just start to look at the behaviors that we have and go, what are we doing day to day? And how can we thread that kind of muscle memory into a product that really kind of makes the whole management of what you buy and how you use it and what you do with it afterwards into just a very fun product that becomes a very kiddie product.
Wow. And did you find, in terms of when you guys got together, was that through a incubator? Was it, I know you said you were working together, so therefore there was that whole element that how did you get your funding, I guess, for the first, when you
So Marina and I were co-workers before. She often quotes that I was her boss twice and now she's mine.
Okay. All right.
So we got an experience of working with each other, and we knew kind of our strengths and weaknesses, and we're very complementary.
Yeah.
And so we set about the journey ourselves, and then we were part of the tech scene, if you like, because of the work that we'd done the 5 years prior. So we ended up actually incubating in the Centre of Fashion Enterprise, which was part of London College of Fashion. And by the end of that episode, was probably about...
Sorry to interrupt you. Were you working at this time, or had you sort of quit the day job to do that?
day jobs, and we just
Oh,
said,
wow.
right,
Okay.
let's go on a journey of discovery.
Fantastic.
We're very often working out of the V&A Museum.
Cool.
Remember the area, we're at the library.
Yeah.
We were working through ideas. We looked at, the rentals market that was rising for clothing. We looked at render runway. We looked at a whole host of products within the space of resale. We looked at wardrobe inventory products, and we just studied. We took the time, I guess, to really understand what was the market and what was evolving.
Yeah.
And tried to kind of, we came out with a concept, an initial concept by August, which we then were prepared to go to investors with and say, right, we think we have an idea here, and here's the model, and here's how we can start to build this. And at that point, we were prepared to, I suppose, open the risk to take in some cash on that.
I got you. And I don't know if, was the fact that you were a female-led business an issue? Do you find that did that play a part or not really?
How to answer that as a female? I think I've led quite an interesting career to date. I've been a lawyer within private practice. I've been head of IP for FIFA. I've worked as C-suite for tech businesses thereafter. I've been very fortunate that to date I've not suffered or found any hurdles. Job. Yeah. Those have been very often in quite male-heavy environments, football in particular. Entering the world of tech, I think I take the mindset that I'm no different from anyone else. So I don't really I don't really feel that I've experienced a bias thus far.
Yeah.
But I think it's clear when you dig deep within the industry, or even superficially, the stats on funding for female-led businesses and the like are very, very low. Right. And it seems to me, certainly, I look at projects that have been funded more recently with very bullish guys who have lesser product or no product and just an idea and are very bullish about how they push that forward.
Sure.
Seem to convince people to give them cash easier.
Got you.
I don't know if that's a characteristic that as female entrepreneurs, and certainly I speak for myself here, is that I don't like to oversell.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I like to give you what I think is reality.
Yeah.
And a very solid reality. And most people who've invested with us have invested because they believe that we can execute, and are very assured that we will execute for them. So, yeah, I think that's potentially the difference, or it helps to explain some of the difference in funding between the two genders. For the first 9 months, we sold all of our exciting collections and financed our thinking time.
But you kept something behind you. I'm so distracted by the little one, which I'm sure is the most expensive one.
Yeah, save the bag, save the Chanel. Hashtag.
Is that what it is?
Oh, well, yes.
The little one. the one that's okay.
Yeah, we had a hashtag at the time, which was eBay for salaries. And it worked very well.
Yeah.
And then from there, we took in a pre-seed, which we went out for 250, and actually we're very fortunate, came in with 350. And we had a couple of late investors who said, let's get it now. We said, okay. And we're just doing an extended raise on that, just to give us an interim, and we're very soon to move to the seed, which should be a bit bigger for 1.5.
Okay, right, well, it's phenomenal. You talked about your partners in terms of obviously retailers, ecosystems. How do you look at your ecosystem and how that plays into what? Because if I understand correctly, you want to be a hub in terms of the little black door is almost a gateway or door into that sort of world.
Wardrobe world.
Yeah. How open have people been to the sort of conversations you've been having?
Yeah, so we, each stage of development brings new sets of conversations. So we more recently worked out, obviously, that we could perhaps create this retail connection. And we started to talk to a couple of partners on that, and very fortunately, I've got people coming to us now to have discussions on that. It's, we're trying to create a world that sets a bit of a tone, and that's not to be elitist in any which way, but a big ethos of the brand is to kind of, buy quality, buy perhaps less frequently, which may or may not suit some retailers, but if the price point is higher and the quantity is lower, then we may well fit that. We'd like to kind of open a gateway, I think, to work with partners who are showing slightly more sustainable practices. So that we're really creating this kind of network and hub that pushes better fashion behaviour as much as you can. I think fast fashion, as I say, has a place for sure, but I think there are some that are better than others, and I think the press has thrown a couple of more tricky players who created mischief socially in their supply chains more recently. So it's I think that's how we're trying to design it, or certainly in the beginning to try and set a tone. And work it from there.
And is it a free service, as in terms of if I want to upload my wardrobe, which would be very sparse and cheap, but if I wanted to upload my wardrobe, would that be a free service to me?
Yeah. So you initially there is a baseline product which is free, and then there's a premium version as well, where if you would like some help to upload your wardrobe, you can send us your receipts.
Okay.
And we can upload those back end.
Okay.
So yes, and there's various gamified elements that we will move into the app as well, to unlock features as well.
And I noticed, because you've obviously gone out there and you've been doing testing and doing use case testing with your sort of segment market. And I noticed again in the article there was this whole thing about Isabella or not Isabella and her 63 handbags. Did you find a profile in terms of your consumer profiles?
Certainly in the beginning, we had access to some fashion influencers, some high fashion spenders. And then I was also very curious to test the segmentation with Gen Zs, who are kind of similarly minded for especially buying from resale, because that's very fitting to their age demographic. Also ones that kind of really appreciated luxury fashion. And, there's a huge buying and selling market that comes off that as well. So we did concentrate, I think, on those people who were shopping very frequently and very often, spending a lot on their wardrobes and, really defining themselves through fashion, or, really enjoying fashion and just being fashion files, really.
Yeah.
So we started that with those, because I think if you can kind of crack some of the psychology of those people, that's super interesting to understand the product.
You mentioned the psychology, I think you mentioned it twice, in terms of buying behaviors and purchasing behaviors. I was just curious if you had a view of COVID, the impact of COVID, and then if you were to look forward, I don't know if you had a view of like the future. Obviously, I think you mentioned about being more sustainable, potentially circular in a sense, and having a circular economy. But I was curious of your thoughts on the future of retail.
I mean, I think COVID has set a broader change of behaviour. We've had months and months at home to kind of reflect a little bit more. And actually what we've had is more time perhaps than we've ever had to kind of stand still and reflect. And, during that time, I've witnessed some quite interesting wardrobe behaviours, which is a lot of people clearing closets, or they've got themselves organised, or they've got the time to catalogue everything and actually see what they have. Yeah. I think, obviously the dynamic of going to store was not a possibility for quite some time. Online purchases, I think, generally speaking, for retail have increased as a result of that. And now we're in this kind of interesting / fraught situation, I think, for some retail, that they are desperately trying to work out what is their online solution to connect with customers.
Yeah.
To either improve that experience, to create that experience, or to pivot around that experience, because the footfall in stores is very low. Does it make economic sense to have a retail app, to have a physical store? What should we be doing online? So I think it's probably forcing some brands into a position that they might have been in 5 years' time now.
Sure.
And the consumer, as a result, is probably a little bit more guarded on the pocket.
Yeah.
Resale becomes incredibly buoyant actually during recession times.
Absolutely.
Thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, consumers are probably pushed to shop online much, much more, to interact digitally in regards to purchasing fashion.
Yeah.
I think Shopify is doing an incredible job for allowing brands to be kind of direct to consumer brands very quickly.
Yeah.
With a kind of element of drop shipping and things. That works very well as long as they're able to fulfill the orders, and factories are open to fulfill.
Yeah.
But the retail, I think, has probably expedited its exploration and usage of digitalization much quicker, and I think that will continue, probably because they're also contingency planning. If what if we went through a second lockdown? What would happen then? But they need to, and we've already seen the rise of kind of the e-resale platform, especially within fashion.
Yeah.
And I think that will just go in an upward trajectory.
I totally agree with you. In any recession, the businesses that tend to help people through that are exactly the way that you're describing it. And I think to date, and that's why it's so interesting, no one's really focused on high value items or high fashion items, as you said, because they always end up going one route. Just jumping around a little bit, so sorry about this, but in terms of going back to your actual, I'm sure there may be some listeners listening to this going, oh my God, how do I then go and do I have to be tech savvy? Do I have to know how to code? And how do I get the technology to bring my idea to life? How did you solve that? And because I know by trade, you're not a coder, although you work in the IT, you've worked with technology within the technology world. How did you solve that problem?
Yeah, there's probably two questions to answer there. There's never be afraid that you don't know something. Okay. Because there's somebody else with an answer. Never really let that be a barrier, but always be very cognizant of your limitations. Yeah. So, I come from a legal background and a management background, which are two very interesting skills to, I think, have when you start a business. It's a good foundation to start a business, but I'd worked in tech environments and for tech businesses for about 5 years before starting this. But, operations, COO, running them, building teams around them. I'm not a coder. I'm not a technologist per se. Yeah. But I, like many of us, I'm a prolific user of tech on a day-to-day basis. Marina, similar. She brings the marketing strength and the creative campaign strength and go-to-market thinking. But between and she'd also run her own business as well. So again, she brings that kind of entrepreneurial skill set. But we spent probably about 3 to 4 months trying to find a tech team that could complement our skill sets. And we were very fortunate to meet a team that were actually based out of the Ukraine and Switzerland and headed by a guy who'd worked for the CNA family. He is part of the CNA family, Amadeo Brankenmeyer, who got this wonderful track history of working within retail for like 10 to 15 years, knew retail inside and out. Yeah. But was also a coder. And, has a great appreciation for technology and had joined forces with a business partner to open his company, which is working with us to create the product.
So that I guess you were very fortunate to be able to find somebody who could not only understand your vision but translate that into a technology roadmap. Yeah, which I guess is a unique partnership once you find that. Where are you in terms of because I noticed the actual when I went onto the URL, the web page, that you hadn't actually launched. So are you in beta, pilot? Where are you in your development cycle?
Yeah, we're in beta 1.0. We had a test group of about 250 people. And from that test group, we took a stack of feedback, which allowed us to get to, I think, just about our minimum viable product for market.
Yep.
Go to the App Store in September, but that's going to be a closed, restricted access.
Okay.
Right now, we're on test flight, and for some non-technician types, that's a bit of a hazard, and it's also a trust issue when they're testing out new products. So we're going to move to the App Store September with view to doing a public launch early next year. That's the plan right now.
And then how does that tie in with the sort of right up front you were talking about, when you go into a retailer and you buy something, as I said, there's that sort of wonderful moment that you want to share. But how is that working in terms of working with retailers?
So we've worked primarily on a kind of B2C product, if you like, right now. But in our kind of ideal wardrobe world, I would walk into a store and show them my little black door, and my item would go in it.
Right.
That's the vision piece here.
Yeah.
So we started talking to a very large luxury store in the UK. We've also started to talk to some smaller stores as well, who are kind of powered by Shopify.
Yeah.
And we think we can make a fairly easy connection for them to have a value add service for their client base. And they kind of like that because then it's a touch point in app where they bought it from. And we start to then, kind of can work with those partners to achieve much more relevant purchases, I think, over time.
I got you. And then, and I sort of joked about this or mentioned this. You're starting in the UK market. Where do you have any sort of? Where would you like to go next after UK domination? where do you see yourself going next after that?
I mean, I think in the world of tech, if you look, the epicenters of tech, it's the States or China.
Okay.
And Europe is a smaller sister.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I think if you were looking to drive growth, then we would probably look to the States as our next move.
Okay.
We are very well supported by our board member and advisor, Chris Hutton, who is CFO of Caffeine TV,
Okay.
but is ex-eBay and PayPal.
Oh, fantastic.
So I think I'd probably just make a beeline to follow him and be slightly.
Yeah.
A Brit as well. We are best friends from school.
Oh, fantastic.
So I would probably attempt to track us there. But COVID is creating quite an unknown territory.
Yeah.
So maybe we go to some other more kind of fashion orientated capitals first. Maybe it's the Middle East. Maybe it's Dubai.
Lexi, that has been been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up some time during these crazy COVID times, but thank you.
The Retail Podcast, a global conversation hosted by Alex Rezvan Vienna.